Zara stepped out of the silver transport pod and onto Earth's surface for the first time. The air smelled different here, sweet and filled with strange scents she couldn't identify. Back on her home planet Vorthik, everything smelled like metal and electricity. Here, there were flowers and something humans called fresh air. She was part of a special program where aliens and humans could learn about each other's cultures. For 6 months, she would live like a human and study their daily habits. The government had given her a small apartment in a quiet neighborhood. It looked just like the pictures in the cultural guidebook, with white walls, soft furniture, and windows that let in natural light. Zara pulled her silver suitcase behind her as she walked up the stairs. Her people, the Vorthakins, were tall and thin with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. They looked similar to humans, but moved in a more graceful way, like dancers. Most humans who saw her thought she was just someone who wore really good makeup. The apartment was small but cozy. There was a living room with a big soft couch, a kitchen with shiny appliances, and a bedroom with a large bed covered in fluffy pillows. Everything fascinated her. On Vorthik, they slept on hard crystal platforms and ate energy cubes. This human lifestyle seemed so comfortable and interesting. She started unpacking her things, placing her research equipment carefully on the desk. As a xenoanthropologist, her job was to study other species and understand their cultures. She had spent years preparing for this mission, reading about human customs and learning their language. But reading about something and actually experiencing it were completely different things. While exploring the bedroom, Zara noticed a small wooden table next to the bed. Humans called it a nightstand, according to her guidebook. She opened the drawer, expecting to find books or maybe human writing tools. Instead, she discovered several strange objects that made her tilt her head in confusion. There were small, colorful items that looked like toys or maybe art pieces. Some were smooth and curved, others had interesting textures. Her people were naturally curious about everything, so she picked them up one by one. Examining them carefully, they felt warm to her touch and seemed to be made of some kind of flexible material. How interesting, she said to herself in her musical voice. These must be human relaxation tools. She had read that humans often felt something called stress and used various methods to feel better. Her scanner, a small device that could identify the purpose of unknown objects, beeped softly as she held it over the items. The screen showed words like personal wellness and therapeutic device. This made perfect sense to her scientific mind. On Vorthik, they had similar tools for muscle relaxation, though theirs were made of crystal and used sound waves. These human versions seemed much more advanced and portable. She was impressed by human engineering and design skills. Zara placed the items on her bedside table like decorative pieces. They had pretty colors and smooth surfaces that caught the light beautifully. She decided they would make lovely conversation starters. When other researchers visited her apartment, later that evening, she sat on her bed reading her research notes. Her neck felt sore from the long journey through space, so she remembered the relaxation tools she had found. Picking up one that was particularly smooth and ergonomic, she began using it to massage the tight muscles in her neck and shoulders. The device had a small button that made it vibrate gently. Amazing, she whispered. Human technology is so sophisticated. The vibrations felt wonderful against her sore muscles. She made a mental note to include this discovery in her first report to the Cultural Exchange Committee. As she worked on her research, Zara could hear sounds from the neighboring apartments. Music played softly somewhere, and she could hear human voices having conversations. The building felt alive and warm, so different from the silent crystal towers of her home world. She decided to take a walk around the neighborhood to observe human evening activities. Outside, humans were walking their furry companions they called dogs. Children were playing in small parks, and couples walked hand in hand under the streetlights. Everything seemed so peaceful and community-oriented. When she returned to her apartment, Zara felt excited about her mission. She had already discovered what she believed were innovative human wellness tools, and she had only been here for one day. She imagined how impressed her colleagues back home would be when she shared her findings. Before going to sleep, she used the massage tool on her shoulders again. The gentle vibrations helped her relax after the exciting but overwhelming first day on Earth. She carefully placed it back on the nightstand, planning to study it more thoroughly tomorrow. As she lay in the soft human bed, Zara felt grateful for this opportunity to learn about such a fascinating species. Humans seem to have developed amazing solutions for physical comfort and stress relief. Their culture appeared to value wellness and self-care, which she found admirable. She fell asleep dreaming about all the discoveries she would make during her stay on Earth, completely unaware that her first discovery was actually something quite different from what she imagined. Her innocent enthusiasm and scientific approach to everything around her would soon lead to some very interesting and embarrassing situations. The morning sun streamed through her bedroom windows, and Zara woke up feeling refreshed and ready to continue her cultural research. She had no idea that her simple misunderstanding would soon become the most talked about incident in interplanetary diplomatic history. The next morning, Zara woke up with the excitement of a scientist about to make groundbreaking discoveries. She had spent the night thinking about those fascinating wellness tools she found, and now she wanted to understand them better. After making herself a cup of something humans call coffee, which tasted strange but gave her energy, she sat down at her computer to begin proper research. She opened her laptop and started typing her first official report. Day 2. Discovery of advanced human wellness technology, she wrote, her fingers moving quickly across the keyboard. She took detailed measurements of each device, noting their shapes, textures, and the way they vibrated when activated. To her scientific mind, these were clearly sophisticated therapeutic instruments. Her computer's translation program helped her search the human internet for information. When she typed in words like personal wellness device and therapeutic tool, she found thousands of websites discussing these items. The translator converted everything into clinical medical language that made perfect sense to her academic brain. Fascinating, she murmured, reading about how humans use these devices for stress relief and muscle tension release. The internet was full of discussions about their effectiveness and different techniques for using them. Zara felt proud that she had figured out their purpose so quickly. She decided to share her findings with her research team back on Vorthok. Setting up her holographic communication device, she prepared for her weekly check-in with the other xenoanthropologists. The blue light filled her living room as the images of her 5 colleagues appeared before her. Greetings, team, she said in their musical language. I have made an incredible discovery about human wellness practices. Her colleague Kex, an older researcher with silver markings on his blue skin, leaned forward with interest. Tell us everything. Zara, what have you learned? With great enthusiasm, Zara held up one of the devices. Humans have developed the most advanced personal therapy tools I have ever seen. Look at the ergonomic design, the multiple vibration settings, the portable size. They are truly masters of wellness technology. She demonstrated what she believed was the proper usage, using the device on her neck and shoulders while explaining its benefits. Her colleagues watched with amazement, taking notes and asking technical questions about the construction and effectiveness of these therapeutic instruments. And the best part, Zara continued, is that every human household seems to have these. They take their wellness very seriously here. I found several different models, each designed for specific muscle groups and tension patterns. The team was impressed. Dr. Vex, their cultural specialist, asked, have you observed humans using these devices in public wellness centers? Not yet, Zara admitted, but I plan to study their usage patterns more closely. The internet suggests they are primarily used in private settings, which makes sense for personal therapy sessions. After ending the call, Zara felt energized by her colleagues' positive reactions. She decided to expand her research by observing her human neighbors more closely. Maybe she could learn about their daily wellness routines from her apartment window. She could see into the building across the street. She noticed that many apartments had lights on late at night, and sometimes she could hear faint buzzing sounds. She thought, They must be doing their evening therapy sessions. Her neighbor Jake lived in the apartment next to hers. She often heard similar buzzing sounds coming through the thin walls, usually in the evenings. Zara was impressed by his dedication to maintaining his physical health. She made a note to ask him about his wellness routine when they met. That afternoon, she decided to visit the local shopping center to see if she could find more of these therapeutic devices. In a small shop tucked away in a corner, she found an entire section dedicated to what the signs called personal care items. The variety was amazing, different sizes, colors, and designs, all clearly meant for various wellness applications. The shop owner, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, noticed Zara examining the products with scientific interest. "Can I help you find something specific?" she asked. "Yes," Zara replied earnestly. "I am researching human wellness practices. These therapeutic devices are remarkable. Could you explain the different applications for each model?" The shop owner's face turned bright red, and she stammered for a moment before saying, well, they're all for personal use. Very personal use." Zara nodded enthusiastically. "Exactly, personal wellness therapy. Humans are so advanced in their approach to individual health care. On my planet, we only have community healing chambers." The conversation continued with increasing awkwardness on the shop owner's part and growing excitement on Zara's part. She purchased several different models for her research, planning to document their various therapeutic applications. That evening, she worked late into the night, writing detailed reports and creating diagrams. She was building what she believed would become the definitive academic study on human wellness technology. Her research was going to revolutionize how other planets approach personal health care. By her third week on Earth, Zara had become the unofficial expert on what she called human therapeutic wellness systems. Among the alien research community, she had written papers, created detailed charts, and even developed training protocols for proper usage. Her confidence in her research was about to lead to some very uncomfortable situations. The university, where she was supposed to observe human academic behavior, had given her a small office and invited her to participate in faculty meetings. She was thrilled to share her knowledge with human colleagues, thinking they would appreciate her scientific approach to their own wellness practices. Dr. Chen, her human research partner, had been very kind and helpful since Zara arrived. She was a professor of anthropology who specialized in cross-cultural studies. When Zara mentioned she had made important discoveries about human health practices, Dr. Chen was curious to hear about them. "I would love to present my findings at the next faculty meeting," Zara said during their weekly coffee session. "I believe my research could help reduce stress among the academic staff." Dr. Chen smiled warmly. "That sounds wonderful, Zara. What kind of stress reduction techniques have you been studying?" "Advanced therapeutic device usage," Zara replied confidently. "I have documented 17 different applications and created efficiency charts for optimal wellness results." The faculty meeting took place in a formal conference room with 20 professors seated around a long wooden table. Zara felt nervous, but excited as Dr. Chen introduced her as their visiting alien researcher, who had made interesting observations about human wellness practices. Standing at the front of the room, Zara began her presentation with great enthusiasm. "Colleagues, I am here to share groundbreaking discoveries about your species' approach to personal wellness management." She opened her research bag and pulled out one of her carefully studied devices. The room fell completely silent. Professor Williams, an elderly man with gray hair, dropped his coffee cup. Professor Davis, a young woman in the psychology department, covered her face with her hands. "This remarkable tool," Zara continued, completely unaware of the shock in the room, "represents the pinnacle of human engineering for stress relief and muscle tension management." She began demonstrating what she believed was proper usage, holding the device against her neck and activating the vibration function. Notice the ergonomic design and the multiple intensity settings. Humans have truly mastered the art of personal therapy. The silence in the room was deafening. Dr. Chen's face had turned several shades of red, and she was making small hand gestures that Zara interpreted as signs of excitement. rather than desperate attempts to stop the presentation. I have found these devices in most human residences, Zara went on, which shows how seriously you take preventive wellness care. I have prepared instruction manuals based on my research. To help optimize your usage techniques, she began distributing copies of her detailed guide, complete with diagrams and recommended therapy schedules. The professor stared at the papers in stunned silence, not knowing whether to laugh, cry, or simply disappear. Professor Johnson, the department head, finally found his voice. Zara, that's very thorough research, but perhaps we should discuss this privately later. But Zara was on a roll. She was so proud of her work and wanted to share all her findings. I have also prepared sample devices for anyone interested in upgrading their current wellness equipment. She began pulling more items from her bag, each one causing fresh waves of shock around the room. The professors looked like they wanted to crawl under the table and hide. Dr. Chen was frantically whispering to the person next to her, who was shaking his head in disbelief. The variety available shows how much humans value individualized therapy approaches, Zara explained, arranging the devices on the conference table like a scientific display. Different sizes for different muscle groups, various textures for specific therapeutic needs. Finally, Professor Martinez, the philosophy department head, managed to speak up. Zara, I think there might be some cultural misunderstanding here. Zara looked confused. Misunderstanding. But my research has been very thorough. I have documentation from multiple internet sources and detailed usage observations. The meeting ended abruptly with Professor Johnson suggesting they continue the discussion at a later time as people filed out of the room. Zara heard whispers and nervous laughter. She assumed they were impressed by her research and were discussing it among themselves. Dr. Chen stayed behind, looking like she had aged 10 years in the past 20 minutes. Zara, she said gently, we need to have a very important conversation about your research. But Zara misunderstood her colleagues. Distress is professional jealousy. I understand if you feel left out of the discovery process, she said kindly, but science belongs to everyone. I would be happy to collaborate with you on future research. Over the next few days, Zara decided to be even more generous with her knowledge. She began leaving what she called wellness starter kits in her colleagues' offices, complete with her detailed instruction manuals and personal notes about optimal usage techniques. The campus became a minefield of embarrassing discoveries, as professors arrived at work to find these surprise gifts waiting for them, each accompanied by Zara's enthusiastic scientific explanations about therapeutic benefits and proper maintenance procedures. Jake had been living next to his unusual neighbor for almost a month now, and things were getting stranger by the day. The buzzing sounds that came through the thin walls had become more frequent, and he often heard Zara talking to herself about therapeutic applications and optimal wellness schedules. At first, he thought she might be some kind of fitness instructor or massage therapist working from home. But then strange things started happening around the university, where he worked as a maintenance supervisor. Professors were whispering in the hallways, looking embarrassed and confused. He overheard conversations about cultural misunderstandings and inappropriate research presentations. Some faculty members seemed to be avoiding certain areas of the building entirely. The final straw came when he found Professor Chen crying in the supply closet, muttering something about how do you explain this to an alien and diplomatic incidents. Jake had known Dr. Chen for years, and she was usually the calmest person on campus. Seeing her so upset made him realize something serious was happening. That evening, Jake decided he couldn't ignore the situation anymore. He could hear Zara in her apartment, talking excitedly on what sounded like a video call. She was speaking in her musical alien language, but he caught some English words mixed in: revolutionary discovery, human reproduction, and efficiency ratings. He knocked on her door, rehearsing what he would say. When Zara opened it, she looked genuinely happy to see him. She was wearing a casual Earth outfit, jeans, and a sweater, but her pale blue skin and large dark eyes still made it obvious she wasn't human. Jake, perfect timing, she said cheerfully. I was just finishing my latest research report. Would you like to review my findings about human wellness practices? I could use a local perspective. Jake stepped into her apartment and immediately noticed her research station. A desk covered with various items, charts, graphs, and what looked like instruction manuals. His face went red as he realized what he was looking at. Zara, he said. Carefully, we need to talk about your research. Of course, she replied enthusiastically, gesturing toward her display. I've made incredible discoveries about human therapeutic technology. Look at this efficiency chart I created for optimal usage patterns. She picked up one of the devices and began explaining its features like a scientist presenting a new invention. The variable speed settings allow for customized therapy sessions, and the ergonomic design ensures maximum comfort during extended wellness periods. Jake felt his face getting hotter. Zara, I don't think you understand what those things are actually for. She looked confused. What do you mean? They're clearly therapeutic devices for stress relief and muscle tension. My research has been very thorough. Jake took a deep breath. This was going to be the most awkward conversation of his life. Zara, those aren't wellness tools or massage devices. They're for something completely different. I don't understand. Zara said, tilting her head in that curious way she always did when learning something new. My scanner identified them as personal wellness equipment. The internet sources confirmed their therapeutic applications. Jake realized he was going to have to be very direct. Zara, those are used for intimate purposes, between adults, for physical pleasure, not for muscle therapy. Zara stared at him for a long moment, processing this information. Her large eyes widened even further as understanding began to dawn. You mean, these are related to human reproduction? Well, not exactly reproduction, but related activities, Jake said, wishing he could disappear into the floor. Zara set down the device she was holding and looked at her entire research station with new eyes. Oh my, I've been studying human mating behavior equipment. That's one way to put it, Jake said awkwardly. Instead of being embarrassed, Zara's face lit up with scientific fascination. This is remarkable. Humans have developed technological assistance for reproductive activities. How efficient, how innovative. Jake wasn't sure if her reaction made things better or worse. Zara, this is considered very private for humans. We don't usually discuss these things openly, especially not in university meetings or research presentations. But this is incredible scientific data, Zara exclaimed, beginning to pace around her living room. My people reproduce through mental synchronization. We have no concept of physical pleasure or technological enhancement for mating processes. This discovery could revolutionize interspecies understanding. She rushed to her computer and started typing rapidly. I must contact the Cultural Exchange Committee immediately. This explains so many human behavioral patterns I've observed. Zara, wait, Jake said, gently touching her arm. You can't just announce this to your government. This is very sensitive information for humans. Many people would be extremely embarrassed if they knew you'd been studying this so openly. Zara stopped typing and looked at him with genuine concern. Have I caused problems for humans? I was only trying to learn about your culture. Jake saw the innocent worry in her eyes and felt bad for her. She really had been trying to do good research, just with completely wrong assumptions. You haven't done anything wrong, Zara. It's just a misunderstanding. But maybe we should figure out how to handle this situation carefully. She sat down on her couch, looking overwhelmed. I've been giving presentations about this to my research team. I've written detailed reports. I've been distributing what I thought were wellness tools to university professors. Yeah, I heard about that, Jake said, sitting beside her. Professor Chen has been pretty upset. Zara covered her face with her hands. I must apologize to everyone. But Jake, I still don't fully understand. If these devices are for mating purposes, why do humans keep them hidden? On Vorthik, reproduction is celebrated as a beautiful scientific process. Jake tried to explain human attitudes about privacy and intimacy, but he could see Zara struggling to understand concepts that were completely foreign to her species. Her people approached everything, including reproduction, from a purely scientific standpoint. Human emotions about these topics are very complicated, he said finally. We have feelings like embarrassment and shyness that don't exist on your planet. Zara nodded thoughtfully. This cultural difference is actually more fascinating than my original research. The psychological and social aspects of human reproduction are incredibly complex compared to Vorthakian processes. As they talked late into the evening, Jake found himself admiring Zara's innocent curiosity and scientific approach to everything. Her complete lack of judgment or embarrassment about the topic was actually refreshing, even if it had caused some awkward situations. The next morning, Zara woke up with a completely new perspective on her Earth mission. Instead of feeling embarrassed about her mistake, she felt excited about this deeper understanding of human culture. She had learned something profound about the complexity of human emotions and social structures. Her first task was to contact Dr. Chen and apologize for the misunderstanding. She found the professor in her office, looking tired and stressed. When Zara knocked on the door, Dr. Chen looked up with a mixture of dread and curiosity. Dr. Chen, I need to speak with you about my research presentation, Zara said formally. I have discovered that my conclusions were based on incorrect assumptions about the purpose of certain human items. Dr. Chen's eyebrows raised in surprise. You figured it out. Yes, with help from Jake, my neighbor. I now understand that I was studying aspects of human intimate behavior rather than wellness practices. I sincerely apologize for any embarrassment I caused you and our colleagues. Instead of being angry, Dr. Chen started laughing. Not mean laughter, but the kind that comes from relief and the absurdity of the situation. Zara, this has been the strangest month of my academic career. But you know what? Your scientific approach to the whole thing was actually kind of admirable. I would like to correct my research and write a proper report about human cultural sensitivity and the importance of accurate assumptions, Zara said. Perhaps this experience could be valuable for future interplanetary exchanges. Dr. Chen agreed, and together they began working on a new kind of research project. Instead of studying the objects themselves, they focused on the cultural differences between species and how misunderstandings can happen even with the best intentions. Zara's new research paper was titled The Complexity of Cross-Species Cultural Exchange, a case study in assumption and reality. She wrote about how her own cultural background had led her to completely misinterpret human behavior and objects. The paper became a fascinating study of how different species approach the same topics from entirely different perspectives. When she presented this corrected research to the faculty, the response was completely different. The professors were genuinely interested in her insights about cultural assumptions and the challenges of studying other species. Her honesty about her mistake and her scientific analysis of what went wrong made for a compelling presentation. What I learned, Zara told the faculty, is that good research requires more than just observation and measurement. It requires understanding the cultural context and emotional significance of what we're studying. Professor Johnson, who had been so shocked during her first presentation, stood up and applauded. This is exactly the kind of insight we hope to gain from cultural exchange programs. Zara also had to correct her reports to the Vorthakian research team. When she explained her mistake during their next holographic meeting, her colleagues were fascinated rather than disappointed. Dr. Kex, the senior researcher, was particularly interested in the concept of human emotional complexity around reproductive topics. So humans experience psychological discomfort when discussing mating behavior publicly, he asked. Taking notes. Yes, they have concepts like privacy and embarrassment that we don't experience, Zara explained. Their reproduction involves not just physical processes, but complex emotional and social elements. Her research team decided that Zara's mistake had actually led to a more valuable discovery than her original mission. Understanding human emotional responses and social taboos was far more important for successful future contact than studying their technology. Jake became Zara's unofficial guide to understanding human emotions and social rules. They spent many evenings talking about the differences between their species and Jake found himself learning as much about Vorthakian culture as Zara was learning about humans. "Your people sound so logical about everything," Jake said one evening as they shared pizza and watched human television shows. "Don't you ever feel confused or embarrassed?" "We experience curiosity and satisfaction from learning," Zara replied, "but not the complex social emotions humans have. Watching your television programs has taught me so much about human emotional expressions." Their friendship became a model for successful interspecies relationships. Jake learned to appreciate Zara's direct, scientific approach to life, while Zara developed understanding and respect for human emotional complexity. When it came time for Zara to return to Vorthok, she had become something of a celebrity among both species. Her research on cultural misunderstanding and cross-species communication was requested by universities across the galaxy. The Zara incident, as it came to be known, became a required study case for all future cultural exchange participants. At her farewell party, hosted by the university faculty, Zara gave a final presentation about her 6 months on Earth. "I came here thinking I would study human technology and daily habits," she said. "Instead, I learned about the beautiful complexity of human emotions, the importance of cultural sensitivity, and the value of friendship that crosses species boundaries." The professors who had once been mortified by her presentations now considered her one of their most valuable colleagues. Her innocent mistake had led to breakthrough insights about interspecies communication and the challenges of studying other cultures. As Zara boarded her transport ship back to Vorthok, she carried with her not just scientific data, but genuine friendships and a deep appreciation for the complexity of life in the universe. Her research had evolved from studying human objects to understanding human hearts and minds. Jake stood at the spaceport waving goodbye, knowing he had gained a friend who saw the world in ways he never imagined possible. Their correspondence continued for years, with Zara sharing discoveries about other species and Jake updating her on Earth developments. The story of the alien scientist who mistook intimate items for wellness tools became a beloved tale, told at diplomatic gatherings across the galaxy, reminding everyone that the best discoveries often come from the most unexpected misunderstandings.